Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the hidden power of silence and honestly, completely reframe how we view the quietest person in the room. We live in a world that literally never seems to stop talking. Broadcasting every single thought we have has just become the absolute norm. But if we actually look closely at the psychology of human interaction, we discover something truly fascinating about the people who purposefully choose to hold their tongues.
So, who gets the most attention in a crowded room? Picture a chaotic, loud environment right now. Maybe it's a crazy busy office, a fast-paced meeting, or one of those networking events with noise everywhere and quick cuts of confident faces. Usually, the person grabbing everyone's attention is the loudest one there. It's the one speaking the most, the one seemingly desperate to be heard. But consider this. Is the person desperately seeking all that attention actually the smartest one in the room? Section 1. The illusion of loudness. Volume is an intelligence. We've basically been conditioned to believe that whoever is dominating the conversation must have the best ideas, but the reality is quite different.
Think about that person who is just desperate to impress others. They're actively seeking attention, expending massive amounts of energy just to be noticed. It's exhausting, right? Now contrast that with the highly intelligent person who simply sits back. While everyone else is putting on a show, the wisest voice is quietly collecting information. They are entirely focused on observation.
We really need to completely redefine silence. Most of us mistakenly view it as a social weakness. People assume if you aren't talking, well, you must have nothing to say, or maybe you just lack confidence. But actually, silence is a strategic sign of control. It represents immense psychological restraint. Honestly, it takes way more self-discipline to sit back and observe a chaotic room than it does to just blindly add to the noise.
Moving to Section 2, the art of listening, the highly active mind. Let's look at what the quiet person is actually up to while everyone else is chatting away. Think about what you're actually doing when you talk. You're really just repeating what you already know. You aren't gaining any new data. But the second you switch to listening, you basically become a giant vacuum for fresh data and entirely new perspectives. By staying quiet, the smart observer collects an absolute wealth of actionable intelligence. They take in every single spoken word, they monitor how people react around the table, and they catch all those tiny micro-expressions, like a quick eye roll, nervous habits, or a genuine smile. While the talkers are entirely distracted by the sound of their own voices, the quiet listener is turning all of these subtle behavioral cues into a massive advantage. Which brings us to Part 3, the confidence paradox, the science of silence. We've seen the behavior, so let's look at how the science backs it all up. Okay, psychological research reveals a truly fascinating paradox here, famously known as the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Basically, people with the least amount of knowledge project incredibly high confidence because they simply don't know enough to doubt themselves. Conversely, the folks with the deepest understanding actually harbor the most doubts. They're usually the most hesitant to just declare absolute truths. So why does that happen? Because intelligence reveals complexity. The loud person looks at the world and sees this simple black and white picture and they just shout about it, which, let's be honest, sounds exhausting. But the highly intelligent person, they see a complex, nuanced puzzle. They prefer to pause, reflect, and just stay quiet until they fully grasp the entire picture.
Section 4. The strategy of silence. Silence in leadership. Let's look at how successful people apply this out in the real world. If you watch top leaders, think Apple's Tim Cook, or famously quiet historical figures like Abraham Lincoln, they operate with this incredibly disciplined three-step approach. Step 1, they purposefully let others speak first. This allows people to reveal their hidden fears and true intentions. Then, they sit back and observe. Finally, they speak only where absolutely necessary. It is a calculated and incredibly effective leadership move.
Now compare that calculated approach to how most people behave day to day. Constantly trying to win arguments online, desperately trying to prove you're right, seeking endless social validation through comments. These are literal drains on your mental battery that achieve absolutely nothing of substance. This quote right here perfectly captures the essence of strategic restraint. Not every battle deserves your attention. Sometimes the strongest response is no response. Think about how powerful that is. By choosing not to engage, by choosing to remain quiet, you are completely taking back control of the situation. You're protecting your own energy and refusing to play a game where the loudest person wins. Because practicing silence actually comes with incredible psychological benefits. It creates a real sense of mystery and establishes a very commanding presence in the room.
Since you aren't just speaking to hear your own voice, when you finally do choose to chime in, your words become incredibly valuable. Your opinions carry massive weight and become highly memorable to everyone listening.
Ultimately, the loudest voice is rarely the wisest. True intelligence never needs to beg for attention. It doesn't need to shout over everybody else just to prove its worth. True intelligence is secure enough to sit back, analyze the data, and strike only when it truly matters.
I want to leave you with a provocative question. The next time you meet someone who speaks very little, don't just assume they have nothing to say. Instead, ask yourself, what exactly are they understanding right now that everyone else has completely missed? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep observing the world around you, and I'll see you next time.